The following is a production of Salt and Light Radio in Boise, Idaho. Kick off your work boots and pull up a boulder. It's time for Man Cave, discussing the issues that affect Catholic men in today's culture. Grab your favorite beverage, pick out a comfy spot around the campfire, and enjoy today's conversation with our two favorite cavemen, Pat King and Brian Howe.
So now you're up there, and how long were you there at that facility, at that job?
Just about a year, just over a year.
Okay.
I
was that the commitment they required? I mean,
no. Well, I gave them.
I said,
I'll
federal,
do it
so
for
you
a
could
year.
transfer around. Or?
No, because it was a little bit different than that. It was a subcontract to the Department of Defense.
Okay.
So I said, no, I'll give you a year, but I didn't want to. My family didn't live there, and so that's another thing you had to really concentrate on. And I mean, all I did was work.
Yeah.
And I'd come home and I'd work long hours and snow machine patrol and 30 below zero and great adventures again.
That's not very cold,
Not when it's 70, it's not cold. So, but then Canyon County, my older brother was the personnel manager there, and the sheriff knew me, and they started recruiting me. And so ultimately, I came down, tested, and did okay. And then when they had an opening, they offered me a job, and so I was able to make things work. And then I came down.
And what did you start out when you came? Now, you're federal. Now you're going to county.
Yeah. So I had.
How did that transition?
Yeah, I had to come down and for the Post Academy here, I went to Post Academy, Alaska. So everything will transfer, but you have to challenge Post here. You have to go through a test. You have to go through Law Week for the state of Idaho. So I had to go through all that and then challenge the test, which I passed it all, and did do the physical stuff too. And then, polygraph, all of it. And then they started me out in the jail as a jail deputy, because that's how we did down there. So it worked out great. And then ultimately the sheriff moved me out of there into detectives because I was patrol certified,
right,
and different than some of those guys. And that was a long time ago.
You went from game wardening 1.5 million acres with 4 people, and now you're in the dry ground, very mild climate in comparison.
Oh yeah.
What then transpired? You become a detective, but then you weren't just a Canyon County detective only working for, you got assigned somewhere.
Yeah, it was different because I had a lot of autonomy up there, right? I was like,
you made your own rules. I had a lot, not your own rule, but you made your own guidelines for how you're going to work, where you're going to work, what you're investigating in.
Yeah, it was very independent. You had to be. It wasn't for everybody. You had to be very, and that's where life experience gave me an edge on some of the other people.
Right.
Because I kind of knew how to handle myself.
When you're old, you gain wisdom.
You do, right? And so it was interesting. But then coming back here, it was a real culture shock for me. Now I'm working inside a jail. Never worked inside a jail before. Visited them a couple of times when I was younger, but never worked in one.
And you didn't spend the wrong side of one, did you?
I was never. They handcuffed me a couple of times, but I had it coming. Then they
obviously they didn't hold that against you. Like I said, he led a very interesting life. My life is like choir boy compared.
We were never malicious. We just had a lot of fun. And so, at any rate, I'm going to move past that real quick.
This wasn't a hit piece, by the way. I just knew that there was some lingering.
Oh yeah,
you don't live that life without having some kind of fun,
No, there was a lot of bar fights, a lot of different things like that, but survived them all. But the jail was very interesting because you and we do that out there. I want my people, even as a sheriff, I want them to learn the criminal element. And in the jail, you're learning that criminal element in more of a controlled setting where you have backup immediately, and you learn how to write reports, and you learn how to talk to.
But you see their demeanor on a daily basis.
12 hours a day.
You hear what they're thinking, how their thoughts are,
and that's good though.
It's
good because you're
not surprised.
You're not surprised, and you see the manipulation and the con games and then you also see the human element these people are having the worst times of their lives, right? And some are career criminals. Some, maybe they got a DUI. Maybe they got just something happened in their life that they're suffering through the worst times of their life. So there's an empathy as well. And I teach that to my staff. I want you to have empathy. I want you to be careful, but realize these are human beings. They have moms and dads and brothers and sisters and kids, you know?
Well, I can tell you, I'll be honest, I failed to appear for a traffic citation, and I got arrested.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. Again, I'm the choir boy, but that one incident, the look on my wife's face at the time, and the situation you go through, if you don't learn something from it, and you can go one or two ways from
you really
that.
can.
And like I was saying earlier in our Blue Room before the live radio show, was that when life gives you something, and you can either decide to learn from it and grow, gain knowledge, wisdom, and grow from that, or you can then be bitter and angry and then take it down another path. And this is where God has played a huge role in my life. Even though I wasn't a practicing Catholic, I looked at God and I said, my mom would be disappointed with me. My grandmother, all these people would be disappointed with me because this is not me. And I mean, I haven't had a traffic citation ever since. Because I just did not want to put anyone else through that, let alone me. I didn't want to put my family through that.
Yeah, I believe that. And we see that, and I think it's really, again, goes.
So when you incarcerate, it can be a huge benefit.
It can be
when they punish for their actions.
It's held accountable. Right. That can be a deterrent, just like yourself, and I think that's important. Again, but there's different stages, different levels, right? And there are some that are just criminal oriented. That
evil minds. They have those
in our society. That's Satan working his magic.
That's right.
To these people.
Got a hold on them.
He's got a hold on them, and you're not going to break some of that
unless they find God. I really truly believe if they find God, they can change their life.
I do too. I've seen it happen. Absolutely seen it happen. I've got a couple of friends who I've worked with over the years, both as an undercover officer and then as the sheriff. Guys that did hard time, San Quentin, right? Wow. San Quentin, solitary confinement, who changed their life. One individual, Peter Vasquez, has a ministry, and he helps.
I think I've met him.
You probably have. He's a wonderful man. He went through horrific things in his life. His kids went through horrific things because of his life. He was a gang member, but he found God, and he came out of it, and he's now helping countless numbers of people he's helping. And so it can be done. Yeah.
So from how long were you in the jail aspect, part of your sheriff duties, your job? So you're just a lowly entry level sheriff at this point. You're big mucky muck.
I'm still not. But I was.
We get to vote for you now.
I know. Yeah, I was in there about 6 or 7 months is all, if I recall correctly, and that's not very long comparatively.
Well, you're old. You're rotting on the vine if
they don't utilize. I think what they saw is that there was I had something I could offer.
Right.
And A, life experience, 2, my experience prior to getting there, and it was a little bit different time. Right. It really was.
This is what?
Early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Yeah, and so
there, I lived here in the 2000s.
Yeah.
I moved here back from California in '95, and Idaho was always Idaho, but we were starting to see an element come into the area.
Yeah.
Huge drug issues.
Huge gang problems.
And I'm going like, where did all this come from?
Yeah.
Why is it happening here? Because this isn't what I grew up with in Twin Falls.
No.
I mean, we saw some marijuana and some drugs and stuff. This is, so I know that became part of the issues. How did you end up in that?
Well, like the sheriff brought me out and put me in detective, so I was working, major crimes against persons, and doing, we had a lot going on, a lot of murders, a lot of shootings, a lot of different things.
A lot of it was Caldwell was
Caldwell, Nampa.
That
It really could. There really wasn't a distinction, but you had roughly 500 gang members in the North Side gang of Nampa.
Right.
You had the West Side Lomas in Caldwell.
And if I remember correctly, Nampa and Caldwell were usually the bedroom communities for, it was a low rent district. A lot of manufactured homes, a lot of mobile home parks, low rent.
Some of it, yeah.
Yeah.
But the gangs seem to really establish themselves there through generations. And so 2005, 2004 and 2005, we literally had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shootings in Canyon County. We made national news.
And the county at that point was what was the population?
100,000.
Yeah, in the whole county.
Something like
and
that.
It's a fairly large county.
Yeah, 600 miles.
And that's a lot. That's really bad.
We made national news. And so the sheriff at the time, Sheriff Smith, and of course the sheriff in Ada, and the Nampa chief, and the Boise, and just everybody got together with the FBI, said, look, we can start a task force.
I remember this coming about.
So it's called the Metro Violent Crime and Gang Task Force, and that's when it was established here in Idaho. It ran by the FBI, and the sheriff said, well, the chief deputy came to me and said, hey, we have a new assignment, you want to go? Because they'd had me over in narcotics for a while, and then they moved me back.
Another adventure, yay!
Yeah. And it was fun because I competed to get to narcotics, and then they moved me back to major crimes because we had so many major crimes.
Right.
And he says, "Hey, would you take another assignment?" I said, "I'll do whatever you need to do, sir." I mean, that we ride for the brand, and wherever I'm needed. So Sheriff Smith assigned me to the FBI for 6 years. I was tasked out. So still worked for the sheriff office, but I was assigned to the FBI and supervised by them, and we had a very target-rich environment. I mean, things were out of control, hundreds of shootings, gang-related, murders, everything. So our job was to infiltrate, that was our mission, was to infiltrate the hierarchy and take those individuals out and take out the gangs.
Now, how did you go about
undercover work? And
were you?
I've done.
You were in the gang itself?
No.
No.
But we were buying dope, buying guns.
So you were on the outside,
the
but
periphery.
dealing with the director.
Absolutely, and then we used a lot of confidential informants.
Okay.
So human sources.
Now, so let me ask: why does a confidential informant become one? I mean, is it because he's generally a good person who just wants to find his way out? I mean, how does that come about? How do you know that he's the guy that you should turn?
Instinct.
Is that secret or
no?
Okay.
It varies. I'm trying to answer that correctly. It varies. There's lots of incentives. They can work off charges. They can. We work. We don't sign up a human source or a confidential informant without going through the prosecuting attorney.
Okay.
Whether it's federal as a U.S. attorney or the prosecutor.
So they know the rap sheet. They know everything about him.
And they know what the current charges are, and maybe this person is on felony probation or parole. Well, then we have to go through the Department of Corrections too. Everybody has a hand in, can we use this person, and what are we going to get out of this, and so they'll give consideration. There's no promises. If you do what you're telling us you can do, we'll give you some consideration. And so a lot of times that's the biggest incentive, is to try to work off charges.
Are they trying to seek, though, to change their lives? I mean,
some of them.
Yeah.
Some of them. And some succeed, very few. But some do succeed. And then some of them kind of maybe have a grudge against.
Oh, okay.
There might be a little bit of
vengeance
thing, a little
there.
bit.
Get back at the guy that beat my dog.
Yes. Or it's a lot worse, right?
Yeah.
And so there one guy that I used, he was fresh out of prison, and we signed him up through the FBI, and he was all over the place, but he was hard to manage, but he knew the secrets. And so through his efforts, we were able to dismantle a lot of things. And so it's a very, very tough game. It's the most dangerous game probably there is, because they're working for you, sort of. They're working with you. They've signed some papers.
Again, papers don't really mean
anything. They can go
anything.
bad any moment.
Yeah.
I've been double-crossed.
Yeah.
I've had the informant tell the bad guys I'm buying dope and gun from, that guy's an ATF agent.
Oh.
I've gotten trapped in an apartment. That was a bad deal. It was bad. It about got me killed. So
and this was God's plan for you.
Yeah. Unbeknownst to me, she told him, and I didn't. And then they confronted me with a machete and a club.
Oh, geez.
And so that's kind of bad. But those guys are risking their lives too, right? Or women. And so my team, I always made, if something happens, we're going in and we're not leaving anybody behind. They're part of our team because they're working with us. So there's a real loyalty that gets built and an honest loyalty. And
I imagine that would help with their commitment.
Yeah, it does. They don't want to be left alone.
They're not going to be casualties.
That's right. And so it's a very, very dangerous game. Very dangerous for everybody. But it's honestly, you can't imagine how much fun that is.
It's so dangerous, but boy, was it fun.
It was the funnest part of my career.
So you were telling me earlier about a situation where this big behemoth of a man and you were with your wife, because I asked him about, because we were just talking, waiting for the live show, and we were just talking about stuff, and I'd asked him about, well, did you have to live separately from your wife? I mean, how did you prevent people from tracking you and finding out where you lived or anything like that? And he goes, well, no, I stayed at home and I had my ways, and he wouldn't divulge, of course, because he's tight-lipped, won't say anything. It's hard to get anything out of him. But then he tells me a story about he was in Walmart.
Yeah, I stupidly went to Walmart.
Did he know you were with? I mean, did he look like that was your wife, or
no?
That you were just standing in line?
That was the danger. I kept my family as separate as I could, and I was telling him about this guy that I was trying to get prosecuted for shooting an individual, and he'd already been to prison for murder. Yeah. And so he's a bad guy. He's a dangerous man,
and a big guy.
He's
probably scary looking too.
Very scary. Very, very, very scary.
I probably would have changed lines if I had seen him in that line.
Tattoos everywhere.
I'm not going to go in that line.
Tattoos, I mean, everywhere. Literally everywhere. And 6'4", 6'5". I mean, he's probably 6'5". Big man. Very dangerous man. And we'd been in rooms together. Because I told him, I said, I'm going to take you down. And he said, you'll never get me. I said, I'll guarantee I'm going to put you in prison. And so we've had our
he knew you were a cop.
Oh, he knew me exactly who and what I was.
Okay.
But I was an undercover cop, but he knew exactly who I was. We'd had some pretty terse conversations because I'd said, I'm going to get you. I'm going to be nice about it, but I'm going to get you. It's a whole different story. But I stupidly, and I told my family about him because he was pretty dangerous, and so I stupidly went to Walmart with my wife, and I shouldn't have. And we're standing in line, and I, for whatever reason, spider senses or whatever, I looked back, and I could see about 3 people back, and he was looking the other way, and I'm just like. So I looked at my wife, gave her the signal, and I eased out of that line. And, of course, now she's there, and I don't want him to know who my wife is. Right? I mean, that's a pretty bad situation.
Right.
And I, unbeknownst to him, I circled back around and got, where I could see him. But he literally was sensing something too, left his wife and walked past my wife, not knowing that was my wife, and goes out into the parking lot looking for whatever just spooked him. And then I was tailing him. He didn't realize I'd double back. And it was pretty tense moment for everybody.
Did you arrest? I mean, did he get arrested at that point?
No. I wasn't done with my case. I needed to get.
Okay.
And so I ultimately got him indicted. And
so that's got to be tough to know that you've got a guy as a bad guy.
Oh yeah.
He needs to be in jail, and yet you really don't have enough to put him away yet.
That's right.
And you have to let him. Oh, that would just drive me nuts.
Oh, it had to play out. It was months and months and months, and I had to get everything in line and the right witnesses to come forward. And
just so you know, cops have to prove someone's guilty. They have to come up with all the evidence. The bad guy can just walk around and create all this evidence and still not be captured. Yeah. And I don't think you get enough credit for, well, why didn't you just shoot him in the arm? Why did you have to shoot him in the chest? That mentality just drives me nuts because it's like, no, these guys have to wait till they actually catch the guy. Doing the bad things, have enough eyewitnesses willing to testify to the bad things,
and realize those guys are all intimidated. They're not going to go against this guy. He's already been committed to murder.
And they know that
he shot another guy.
And that's kind of like
he went to got
what he's willing to do.
He's
I'll
got
just
out
kill
of
you.
prison. Now he's back in the game.
Yeah.
He shot another person. It's like, okay, who's going to talk about this guy, right? So I mean, I had to build my case, and it was a cool case, and ultimately I did exactly what I told him to do. I said, when the day I take you down, I'm going to handcuff you myself, and I'm going to let you go visit your child, and then I'm going to take you to jail. And
How long after the Walmart incident did that?
It's probably a couple months, 3 months. But I
so
did
here
exactly
this
that.
bad guy's walking around for 2 or 3 months, and
No,
you
he
just had to eat at you.
Oh, I was patient. I'm a good hunter. And so he, but ultimately we got him, and we did wrestle him down in the street, and I did handcuff him, and I did take him over and say goodbye to his kid, and he threatened to kill me, and I said, yeah, I'm here whenever you get out.
Sure, add to your sentence here.
So
is he still in jail today?
nope, he's out.
He's out?
He came saw me.
Really? How? I mean, he murdered a guy, but you probably couldn't prove that, huh?
Well, he'd gone to prison for murder.
Okay.
And then he gotten out.
How is he out?
There's some things. I mean, he made a deal
Oh, okay.
against somebody else.
Ah, okay.
So
is he still a bad guy?
Oh yeah, he'll always be a bad guy. But he got out and made that threat again, and I'm like, whenever. And so then I didn't see him for a couple, 3 years, and then he shows up at my office, and I wasn't there actually.
Recently, or
That's 4 years ago. And then so I said, they said he's looking for me, and I'm like, "You leave a phone number?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Give it to me." So I called. I said, "Hey, heard you're at my office. Why don't you come back?" "Okay, I will." "All right." So we sat across the desk and had a little conversation. He changed his ways a little bit. He was working. He was doing a good job, and wanted to thank me for helping him get on the right track.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm buying that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So we'll. We had a good conversation. We didn't hug or anything.
We didn't
shake
leave as besties, huh? You're
No.
not BFFs or
No.
nothing like that.
No, and
let's share our social media.
I had my hand where Mike could get my gun.
Was this in your office?
Oh, yeah.
He came back to your.
I invited him in.
Boy, he's a bold guy.
He is bold.
I mean, when I go there, I went to go to your office because I wanted to see you, talk to you. I had to strip down to almost, it's like, I don't like this.
He's a pretty brave man. Let me tell you, he's a dangerous guy.
So now, how did you become the sheriff of Canyon County? I mean, your faith is still important to you, obviously.
Yeah.
It's in your everyday life. Now you're a detective. You're undercover. How did you end up getting out of that? And then what was next?
Well, I'd been under for many years, and I told the sheriff, I said, I need to come back. I need to come out. I need to come back to the light.
I want to be able to get my hair cut. And, and look like a real human being.
What happens, and here's where your faith is important, and your family's faith. You miss things with your kids. Like I missed my daughter's senior night. She was a good volleyball player, and the dope buy became more important.
Yeah.
And I rolled up to the gym as they were walking out, and a lady said to me, "You'll never get this time back," and she was right. And it struck a chord with me, and I've never forgiven myself for it, for not being.
And not to make light of that, when my son died.
Yeah.
He was 12 years old, and my girls were just entering into private Christian school in Greenleaf, and when he died, I kind of went the opposite. I went overboard. I became the helicopter dad. I mean, it wasn't that bad. I still had to work. I had 3 businesses at the time, but I made sure that I was at every one of my kids' games because we lost so much during his medical needs and all that, and time with the girls, hospital stays. But then it's like, I've lost a child. I don't want to lose any more.
Yeah.
And so I think I went overboard the other direction.
That's interesting.
And caused an animosity and a rift between my daughters and I because I was a little too much there.
Yeah, and I became a little more protective than I ever was. Right, I became more protective because of the world I lived in, the work I did. But it's like my daughter was going to Nampa Christian. I mean, we were faith based, and it just struck you that, and I would go to games when I could get a chance, and me and my partner would roll in, and we're long hair and we don't look like cops. I know this is a totally different look.
I need to see that. Can we put a wig on?
I've got some pictures. No,
oh, okay. I want to see those. Maybe we can get them here. We can add them.
It was.
I just can't see. I've never seen you in anything but the hat and.
I'll give you a couple examples. Well, first of all, to the games, I'd go into the gymnasium and my wife would say, "Don't sit by me." She'd say, "I don't want you to sit by me. I don't want people.
Don't even look at me. Don't acknowledge me."
People are like, "Who is it? Who are you?"
Don't even yell for your daughters.
So
don't let.
Me and my partner would stand down at the. It's like, oh my god, and of course, almost inevitably, hey, we got to roll. We got something going on. There's a shooting. There's a bad guy. We got whatever. So we'd probably have to leave. Well, one time I went to the office for whatever reason. We didn't go to the office all the time, but because we had a covert location
right.
we'd meet, office we worked from. Well, I walked up on the street and there was these two patrol officers standing there, and I literally physically heard one of them say, "What's this piece of crap want?" And I'm like, "Hey, this is Donahue. I'm one of you." "Oh, sorry about that." I'm like, so it seemed to work, right? What's this piece of crap want? So,
well, I mean, you see normally the elements of bad are those guys that kind of look disheveled and don't care for themselves and, have unruly hair and you say not to judge a book by its cover, but, 9 times out of 10.
We do. We're human beings.
We're human beings. Yeah.
Anyway, after all those years, I was like, that really struck me. I felt so bad for my kids about not. I mean, so I changed, and
they're resilient. They got over.
They
right?
did.
It never affected them, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, look at my last episode with Eddie. We talked about resiliency. Yeah. I hate using that word because it, no matter good or bad, it does have an effect.
It does.
The absence of the father, the over-hovering of the father, the things you do, there's got to be a balance, and your kids need to know that there's love and support.
Yeah, without question. So I went to the sheriff at some point and said, I need to come back. I'd like to come out. And so I was a corporal by then, and so he put me as a supervisor in detectives, and I was 50 by then, and
so your lifelong dream was to run for sheriff?
Not at all. Had no question. No, I had no intention.
What? You didn't want that top?
No intention whatsoever. I just came from one of the greatest jobs ever. Right? I'm tactical and undercover. I mean, come on, who gets to do that stuff? It's all TV stuff, right? So,
yeah, they really make it look good on the TV.
It's fun. I'll guarantee you, it's dang fun. It's dangerous, but it's a lot of fun. But Sheriff Smith wanted to retire, and he asked him and his wife took Jeannie and I to dinner one night, and he said, "I'm going to retire, and I want you to run for office." And I said, "You're out of your mind. I ain't doing that." So I have no intention of running for office. And he goes,
He paid for dinner, right?
Yeah. That was nice of him. I said, "Sheriff, I love you, and I'll follow you, to hell with a bucket of water. I'm your."
Yeah, I liked him too. He's a good guy.
I mean, I'm a loyal man, and he goes, "Well, you're the guy." And I said, I'm not the guy. He goes, "No, I really," and I said, I'm not going to do it. And so that was like December. And, it was
December of.
I can't remember what year it was, but it seems like it was
2012, something like that, 2011,
2011 maybe.
Yeah.
And it was like, he says, "No, I want you to do it." I said, "No, I'm not doing it." And so months later, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to do it.
Well, the voice of God, I mean, your wife had a lot to say about it.
And she really kind of left it up to me, and I was kind of like, I said, I don't want to do that. And then, just as we've said before, I mean, I remember the day it happened, and God came to me and said, "You're going to do this." And that again sounds corny, but it happened.
No, it's not corny.
And
because
I literally,
who else was even not putting any of your co-workers down, but who else was even remotely capable of taking over?
I'm sure there was people, but God just said, "You're going to do this." And I literally remember I was by myself at my home or somewhere, and I remember grabbing my knees and bending over and losing my breath, and I said to myself, or out loud, I said, "You've got to have a different answer to God." And I said, "This
take this cup away from me, Lord."
Seriously, it's like, and I said, "This can't be the answer." And Jeannie got home, and I told her, and I said, I'm going to do it.
Because it's not just a job step up. It
No.
is, you have to go out in the public and run.
Campaign. And
most people don't, I don't know if you know, but sheriffs are an elected
we're
position.
elected, so you're.
And you got to campaign, you got to get backers, supporters, funding
money,
and all that.
And then you're exposing your entire family and the scrutiny.
And trust me, I've seen some of the articles written about. I'm going like, I know this guy. This is. How can they make this stuff up?
There's some haters out there. I don't know. It's weird.
There's haters out there.
But I remember going to the sheriff the very next day, and I said, I'll do it. He goes, do what? And I said, I'll run for office. And his smile, you just couldn't get that smile off his face. But
finally, I can retire.
But that's how that's exactly how it happened.
Yeah.
And
He was sheriff for how long?
8 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
He moved up through the ranks, similar.
Yeah, he definitely moved up from the ranks. He started there and ended there.
Yeah.
He was long term, 38 years.
Yeah. So I voted for him the two times he ran, and
38 years,
and enjoyed him. He was always had a good personality,
a great guy.
Was very good with the public, and seemed to have a good balance. And
he had the public in mind at all times, and is a true servant and a wonderful. He's a Christian man and. He's a wonderful man, and we have different management styles.
Right.
But he saw something that he felt that was the way to go, and I've tried to live up to that. My whole career, my whole tenure as sheriff, I want to make him proud as well.
So now, I think that was 2012.
I ran for office in 2012.
Yeah. And so did you run unopposed, or did you? I mean,
I've never run unopposed.
I don't remember.
I can't remember if I've ever. I think maybe one. The last general I think I've always had opposition, but
in your own party. I mean, it's a non-party race.
Yeah, it seems like there's been an independent in there, but no, I didn't run unopposed. I had to win the primary, and then in Canyon County, you win the primary, you're pretty well
win
assured because we're such a hard Republican county, but they're not easy. I've been through through the primaries and that 6 elections.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of hit pieces on you written about you. I mean, it just overwhelms me with the things when you know someone and you know of them. I mean, I didn't know you personally back then more than I do now, but I've heard you on Kevin's show and all that, and I've seen you out in public. I've seen your Man Up Crusade and all that stuff, and you just kind of get a feel for someone.
Yeah.
And then the things you've stated when you've done public press conferences and stuff, you're going like, okay, he doesn't seem like the evil person that they're saying he is, So it just makes you wonder, like, okay, I can't read this. I can't watch it. I can't read it because I know what they're going to say. They're going to lie about. That had to be difficult.
It's still difficult. They're still doing it. They're still doing it. And people do it. And yesterday, drives my wife crazy. I tell her, I said, quit reading that crap. Just quit reading it because these people aren't going to change. You're not going to change.
They're not in it for your benefit. They're not helping you. They don't want to help you grow as a person.
They're just angry people, right? Angry. And we've got Morgan Romero's doing this piece right now that I pitched to her, and she's a 4-part series on Channel 7, and she's doing a really good job with it. But these people coming in, and where do you come up with this stuff? It's just like, and it's just, you're just not going to change these folks. So
no,
it bothers me at times, and it's like, whatever. I mean, I know who I am. I know that I do. This is God's calling.
Yeah,
I was called to the service, and being a sheriff, I work for God and I do His work, and this is, we try to combat evil and we make a wrong a right, and this is the path. And so, yes, there's this outside noise and all these jabs at me, but I know that God guides me every day.
So, are you running for re-election again? When's that?
It's 2 years from now. I'll run. I'd like to do one more term if the people will have me.
Oh, I'll take you.
I appreciate that.
Just don't pull me over, okay? Give me that courtesy card. I want to.
I think it's right now I'm the second vice president of the National Sheriff Association. I've climbed up through the ranks of the national program as well, and that would, I'd be the president in 2 years of that as well too. So it's another calling by God. I had no intention of that, but that's just how He guides me.
Well, and so now Sheriff, he doesn't do anything. I mean, he has a very mundane, very Monday through Friday life. It's kind of really just like boring. So he found his way into doing a few other things. Like he did a movie with he's done 2 movies now. But you write this and then produce it, star in it, and it's a movie. And what was the name of the movie?
That's called Lost River.
Lost River. And his brother, the better looking one, is in the movie with him. And didn't you shoot your brother, or didn't someone shoot his brother?
No, we can't give away the whole movie.
Oh, okay.
Can't give away the whole movie. It was a movie I wrote and produced and
in your free time.
It was, and I was running for sheriff at the time.
Oh, geez.
And my wife was she thought it was a joke. I said, no, I'm going to write a movie. And I had this guy that worked for us in terms of the sheriff's office, and he was a great he had retired officer in New Jersey, but he was a film guy, and I was just enamored with it. And I said, I want to do a documentary about my dad, and that's how it started. And then we set that aside. I was so excited. I said, I'm going to write a movie. And he said, well, you can't. I said, why can't I? And he goes, we don't know what you're doing. I said, well, how'd the first guy do it? And he goes, well, I guess you got a point. And so I wrote it, and then we worked on the screenplay together and asked him to direct it, and then I ended up co-directing it. Actually co-directed it with him, and produced it, and my twin brother and I. It's about us. It's about our lives, and it's a real story about his cancer, and it's a live film. And it's so, there's about that much Hollywood in it, but everything was filmed on location here in Idaho. And
where Central Mountains?
Yeah, well, we started
area?
in Nampa, Caldwell, the Owyhees, Stanley, Sun Valley.
I watched it. It was great to see Idaho in all its glory.
Then the Central Mountains and our ranching country, and it's a life film. It's sad, it's happy, it's fun. It's what life is about.
So then, more recently, well, I guess 4 years ago now,
3 or 4 years ago,
you didn't write the movie.
No.
You were starred in it. It was more of a documentary,
cinematic documentary on that was filmed here in Treasure Valley called No Greater Law, and it was a film that was supported or financed by A&E Films.
Okay,
so a very high production deal, and it was me as Sheriff Donahue. It's a cinematic documentary about a group of people here in our communities called the Faith Healers who don't believe in medical science for their children
at all.
Right? And so this producer from Oregon and a film and filmmaker, and then the director.
This was someone else's idea, though.
Yeah,
right?
they came to me and asked me to be involved because they knew the high concentration was in my county and that I've been involved with these cases. So we filmed for a year and a half, and they got into this. They did their side, and I did my side, and then again A&E funded. So we took our time, and it's a very powerful, thought-provoking film, and it ended up a year and a half of filming, and then 6 months in post-production in London, the UK, and by really, really talented people. And then it did its world premiere. We were accepted into the Tribeca Film Festival in New York City. Okay. Robert De Niro's film festival.
Okay.
And that's where it did its world premiere. I flew out for that because it was pretty spectacular. And then it went on to receive a nomination for an International Emmy Award, one of 5 films internationally on documentaries.
Wow.
So it's a great film.
So are both these films available? So the website or your website? I mean, how do they find these?
So
movies?
the No Greater Law you can get on Amazon or Netflix or what have you.
So that's the cinematic documentary.
Yep. And then
No Greater
my film, we do our own distribution or have, but we're just now getting ours ready to go onto Amazon. Okay. So if they contact me, whatever, I can set that up.
It's the Lost River.
It's called Lost River because that's where we filmed it.
This is he leads a boring life. I know that. An hour of really inconsequential, information. But, I just thought I'd bring you someone that a little different than me, because he's...
Not really.
Not really. Well, so we are going to get into some other things. We're going to do a couple more episodes on his Man Up Crusade Foundation and domestic abuse and all that entails. And then we're going to go into his history with drug enforcement, the border. He's been down to the border. So those are some other episodes. I hope you will watch these, like these, share these, subscribe. I don't do a lot of self-promotion because I'm terrible at it. I just would rather go out and fix sprinklers and mow lawns, and but this is a very important ministry, and I thought it was very important to bring this sheriff to you because he's a very interesting man, has a great life, and God is I would have to say God has got to be a central point in your life for all these things, because you would not be walking here today if you disavowed God or didn't have God as the hope for your life to come on. So.
I talk to God every day, multiple times. Driving here this morning. I don't wear my Catholic religion on my shirt sleeve. Maybe I should. I don't. But you
live your life that way.
I live my life, and I'm passionate about it, and I rely on God, and I pray to Mary and to Jesus and our patron saints, and it's just because I believe so deeply in it, and I know that. I mean, we can laugh about things, but I've broken probably nearly every bone in my body, at least on my right side, and I've been in the hospital so many times from things that we haven't even talked about. That God is always there, and He's like, if He didn't have a purpose for me, and He didn't have a message for me to keep giving, I wouldn't be here. And so I know that deeply, devoutly. I know that. I know my family knows that, and so I do live on the edge at times, and I'm probably a little bit crazy on that. But I know that He guides my path, and that's when people are so mean-spirited and vicious, and really they don't know what the heck they're talking about. But you know what? I just have to say, well, God's got a plan. It sets up to.
Well, and that brings it back to the old saying is that God doesn't call the qualified; He qualifies the called. And you are just that idiot enough to do everything. God is you're loyal to a fault, man.
Yeah, I am.
And that's a good quality.
Yeah, I am loyal to a fault.
And so you're loyal to God, and
yes.
God keeps going, okay, no, that wasn't the path I want. No, come back here,
Yeah.
So I'm glad you find your calling and you found your path, and that I've always been in awe, and not in a, but just how your life. You've had to keep that balance, and you're in a public life, but you've also had a personal life and a private life and a spiritual life. And boy, when you can put all those factors in, you keep your sanity. I think. I really think that has to be the thing that says, well, hey, no, this is God's path. I'm on His path, not my doing, and it would drive you nuts otherwise.
You really summed it up very well. This is not.
Did you get that? Finally, someone.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Just so you know, but it is and you have to come to grips with it. I think there's been a couple of times when I wasn't at grips with it, and I fought him, and I fought that. It's like I don't. But when I look back, it's like so simple. And then when I look forward, and even Gene's like, I don't know how you do what you do, and I said, I just do what I think I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
There's these parameters now. There's this guiding parameters, and I said I just got to stay between those two lines, and and He guides me into doing.
Well, there was a time, my son early on, I think he was a year and a half old. There was a time where I spent 31 out of 34 days, 24 hours a day at his bedside.
Yeah.
And if you asked me to do that again, or to, just out of the blue say, hey, I need you to spend 24 hours a day at someone's bedside, going home just on Sundays to get a good night's sleep, because I slept at his bedside. And I wasn't a practicing Catholic back then, but I was still a believer in God. I still believed Jesus. I still believed in God. I had that Catholic upbringing. And when I look back, and I wrote a book about my life, and I hear you're writing a book about your life story too, which I cannot wait to read. I hope there's better stuff in than what we talked about. But anyway, when I sat down to write this book about my son, and I was telling that story about how I always used that 31 days out of 34 as some badge of honor or something like that. I'm going like, wait a minute, how was I able to do that?
Yeah.
how did I have the physical? I mean, I only ate one meal a day. Only because it was Loma Linda. It was a Seventh-day Adventist. Oh. So vegetarian food. It's like that was no. And he had to go to testing all the time, and he was up all the time. And I'm going, how did I make it through? And I go back and I realize, even though I was not really focusing on God, God was focusing on me.
Yeah, that's true.
That's whole time. And I look back and say, so you had me in the palm of your hand, providing the strength, the energy, 30 days, 31 days.
Yeah, that's amazing.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
And it's because of God.
That's truth.
Nothing to do with my own ability. Now, I was in my 30s.
Yeah, but still.
But it's like, this is not.
But then don't you agree that looking back and seeing him guide you like that, and his strength, and him guiding you and molding you to what you do today.
Yeah.
This podcast.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Your faith.
I would never have predicted this path for me.
Right? Yeah. But he knew about it.
Yeah.
And he was giving you the strength to get through that so he could put you here today.
I think a few 2x4s have been used on me to kind of bring me about here. But I am really so honored to speak to a public official, someone in law enforcement that has the depth of faith and the gratitude for his faith that he does. And the thing is, you can see it in his job. You can see it in his press interviews and how he deals with people, the lies and all that stuff. I'm just really proud to be associated with you and know you're my sheriff of the county I live in. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for coming. We will be doing a couple more episodes, so you will see him in the same shirt. We don't have costume changes or anything like that. So we will talk about his Man Up Crusade and his faith walk and his criminal life. I mean, not criminal. The criminal law he pursues. So thank you very much, and we'll end in prayer and with the St. Michael's prayer. So thank you very much.
In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, Amen. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Man Cave, a weekly podcast discussing the issues that affect Catholic men in today's culture. A production of Salt and Light Radio in Boise, Idaho. To learn more about our ministry, please visit our website, saltandlightradio.com.